The peaceful surface of Forrester Creations shattered when Douglas, now a legal adult, uncovered a secret buried deep within the company's history. A clause in Caroline Spencer's will that named him as the sole inheritor of her considerable shares in the company. Hidden away for years, the document had remained dormant, protected by legal red tape and the silence of those who feared what its contents could unleash. But now, with Douglas coming of age and no longer under anyone's guardianship, the truth emerged with undeniable force. He wasn't just a Forrester by blood. He was a majority shareholder with rights that could destabilize the entire company. And as that realization took root, the balance of power began to shift violently. Thomas had long been pushed to the sidelines, tolerated but rarely trusted. After years of manipulation, mental instability, and self-sabotage, his position at Forrester Creations was tenuous at best. Despite his undeniable talent, he was viewed as a liability, constantly forced to prove his loyalty, while others were given limitless chances. But now, with Douglas's inheritance offering a legitimate path back to power, Thomas saw an opportunity to restore his status and reclaim what he believed was rightfully his. More than that, he saw a chance to avenge the humiliation he endured when Hope manipulated the courts to gain custody of his son. The lawsuit came swiftly, publicly, and without apology. Thomas filed a formal petition on behalf of Douglas, asserting that the current structure of Forrester Creations violated Caroline's wishes and that the Logan influence, particularly through Hope, had tainted the company's original mission. The suit demanded immediate transfer of Caroline's shares to Douglas, recognition of his authority as a major shareholder, and the removal of any Logan-affiliated executive or board member from positions of power. At the heart of the suit was an unrelenting claim. Forrester Creations had been stolen by deceit, and now justice was overdue. The reaction from the Forrester family was explosive. Ridge, caught between his son and the company he had led for decades, was blindsided. Brooke, never one to back down from a fight, immediately launched a counteroffensive, calling the lawsuit frivolous and accusing Thomas of manipulating his son once again. Eric, heartbroken by the war tearing his family apart, tried in vain to mediate, but Thomas was resolute. For the first time in years, he held the legal high ground, and he would not surrender it. Hope was the most shaken. The legal documents referenced her past in detail. How she had exploited Thomas's mental instability, played the victim, and manipulated the court system to win custody of Douglas under the guise of protecting him. At the time, many had cheered her as a hero. But now, under the sharp light of legal scrutiny, the narrative twisted. Emails, testimonies, and court transcripts resurfaced, showing how she had used every trick available to turn public opinion against Thomas. Whether or not her intentions had been pure, the outcome had been clear. She took his son from his father, and now that son was fighting back. Douglas, once the quiet boy caught in the crossfire of adult wars, was now a man with a voice and a legal team. He wasn't simply following Thomas's lead. With his inheritance confirmed and his autonomy recognized by the court, Douglas began speaking out, granting interviews and making public appearances that revealed just how deeply he had been affected by his childhood. He spoke of being paraded like a trophy, used as leverage, and emotionally torn between two people who each claimed to love him while waging war in his name. But what stunned everyone most was his blunt statement during a televised interview. Hope raised me, but she never asked what I wanted. She just took me. Now, I'm taking back my life. The media frenzy was immediate. Public sentiment, once firmly behind the Logans, began to waver. Questions arose about Hope's role in Douglas's upbringing, her motives, and the ethics behind her custody battle. Liam, still bitter from his separation with Hope, did nothing to defend her. Instead, He gave a cryptic statement to the press about how people show their true colors when power is at stake. The insinuation was clear, and it only fueled the fire. Meanwhile, inside Forrester Creations, chaos erupted. Board members were divided, executives uncertain, and creative teams paralyzed by the fear of what might come next. Zend and RJ were thrust into an unexpected power struggle, each trying to maintain stability as the core of the company shook beneath them. Steffi, usually the strongest Forrester voice, found herself outmaneuvered at every turn. Her authority was challenged, her decisions questioned, and her legacy threatened by the very cousin she once saw as a child playing in the design rooms. Brooke, infuriated, launched a PR campaign to discredit Thomas and Douglas. She dredged up every mistake Thomas had ever made, from faking Caroline's illness to manipulating Hope with a digital mannequin. She painted Douglas as an ungrateful pawn, manipulated by a father desperate for power. But her tactics backfired. The public saw it for what it was, a smear campaign. And the more she attacked, the more Douglas appeared composed, thoughtful, and mature, winning sympathy with every statement he made. Then came the internal audit. As part of the lawsuit, Douglas's legal team requested a full financial review of Forrester Creations. What they found was damning. A series of unauthorized transactions traced back to Hope for the Future, a division under Hope's control. Funds had been redirected, not stolen, but moved without proper board approval to support overseas manufacturing initiatives that never materialized. While Hope claimed it was an administrative oversight, Thomas seized on it, calling it yet another example of Logan corruption. Faced with mounting evidence and crumbling public support, Ridge tried to broker peace. He offered Douglas a seat on the board, a chance to shape the company without dismantling it. But Thomas refused. He wanted more than a seat. He wanted redemption, retribution, and recognition. The trial date was set, and in the weeks leading up to it, alliances shifted rapidly. Steffi secretly met with Thomas, hoping to negotiate a private settlement, but left the meeting realizing that her brother was no longer driven by insecurity. He was driven by legacy. Eric began drafting a new succession plan, one that included Douglas as a potential future CEO. Carter, torn between his loyalty to the Forresters and his respect for legal procedure, reluctantly took Douglas's side, citing the strength of his claim. Hope, devastated, withdrew from public view. She stopped attending meetings, refused interviews, and spent most of her time isolated at the cabin. Her relationship with Beth strained under the pressure, and her bond with Liam was irreparably broken. She had lost the child she once fought for. Not to death or distance, but to the consequences of her own actions. When the trial began, the courtroom overflowed with press, family, and shareholders. Thomas presented a compelling case, supported by documentation, testimony, and an undeniable truth. Douglas was the legal heir to Caroline's shares, and the company had ignored that fact for too long. Hope's team argued emotion, character, and contribution. But the law was clear. The verdict came swiftly. The court ruled in favor of Douglas. He was granted full access to Caroline's shares and an official place on the board. Moreover, the judge issued a reprimand against Forrester Creations for failing to honor the stipulations of Caroline's will, opening the door for further financial penalties. In a stunning moment, Douglas stood, turned to the court, and declared that he would not sell his shares, nor would he leave the company. "I'm not here to burn this place down," he said. "I'm here to build it back, the way my mother wanted." Thomas, finally vindicated, stood beside his son with quiet pride. But he knew this victory came at a price. His relationship with his family would never be the same. Hope's image was tarnished beyond repair. and the company he now held influence over was deeply divided. Forrester Creations had survived scandal, betrayal, and even death. But this time, the threat came from within. From a child who had grown up in the shadows of giants and decided to carve his own path, not by inheritance, but by force of will. The new era had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again.